So we have here the Yamaha WR 150R, the Honda CRF 150L, and the Honda XR 150L. Now I've just had a quick go on them, and the WR 150R is by miles the best bike here. It's the only bike of the three that actually feels like a proper motorbike, whereas if you're on the CRF 150L and the XR, they kind of feel a bit like toys. They wobble around, you're not that comfortable on them. They do the job and they're great for learning on, but they're not put together particularly well. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, like I basically learned how to do off-roading on the XR 150 and how to wheelie. Well, I can't wheelie anymore because I'm getting old and keep breaking my arms. But right now, driving this bike around, I don't feel comfortable enough to go off that jump, partly because of the rubber foot pegs, but partly just the overall build quality. I don't feel safe on it. It's a great way to learn how to drive a motorbike, but there does become a point where you outgrow it because it's got no power, no build quality, everything's wobbly. So you end up in sand like this and the bike is really not helping you. It's not helping. So this is a great starting point, but you outgrow the bike eventually. Because you can't, I mean you probably can do jumps on it, but you're not going to feel safe. And it's the least powerful of the three by quite some way. But yeah, you can learn a lot of shit on this bike. You got drum brakes as well, so you don't really have the control that you should have over the back brake. We'll go try doing some of the little logs and shit. See if I can get over a log, because I'm not willing to do the jumps. Pussy. Maybe I'll be willing to. Yeah, it's fine. But you don't have the power to pop the wheel. You're just relying on sort of crushing your way through it. So you should be popping clutch, but you can't. You start trying to stand up and the kickstart gets in the way. Yeah, it's like it does it all, but just not very well. And you see it with the riders in Saigon, everyone's on XRs because we're comfortable with it. And then they slowly start to outgrow the bike, and that's great, but you do eventually need to look onwards. Oh dear. And we're down. So I think what happened is I got my leg stuck on the kickstart, I think.
Kickstart on this one. It's so easy to get stuck on.
So then of course when you fuck up you got, what's the weight of this? 130 kgs. 138 I think it is. So I've got my little fact sheet here. So the XR is 63 million dong, which is about $2,800, 130 kg, 12 litre gas tank, and 825 millimeter travel. I mean seat height, and it has 5 gears. Now the XR is what we use at Tigit motorbikes. We have literally 400 of these. Sorry? Oh, we'll wait for him then.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally 400 of these bikes, but we use it for driving across Ho Chi Minh to Hanoi. It's a road-based journey. You could look at it like an adventure bike, really.
Yeah.
Your objective is to be on the road with the capabilities to go off-road. And out of the three bikes, it has the nicest seat, the most comfortable seat, definitely the best for the pillion. So it's set up really well for an adventure road journey. What it isn't is what we've been showing today, which is someone trying to learn how to off-road. You find in this environment you can learn, and it's great for learning, but there becomes a point where the bike starts to hold you back. And it gets to a point where you need to, if you want your skills to progress, you need to upgrade, or you'll find the bike is actually causing you to crash as you try to push yourself further, which is what we've seen today. Any comments on that? Or you agree with it all? I mean, you've owned an XR and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I've tried more. I like the XR on road. My wife likes the XR.
Yeah.
My wife hates the CRF 150. I like the CRF 150 for technical slow stuff, but CRF 150 doesn't go too well when you drive it aggressively on single track. But the WR 155 I tried yesterday. Suspensions is much better than the CRF 150, and I actually can drive it aggressively. So I like the WR 150 now. So
yeah, each time you get a better bike, you like the better bike.
Yeah,
but obviously the price goes up. All right, let's have a go on the Yamaha WR 150. Cool. Yeah. So the first thing that I noticed is the WR 150 feels like a proper motorbike, just without the power. You know, like comparing it to my KTM, I feel as comfortable on this going around corners and doing whatever on it as I do on my own personal bike. It's just missing all of the power. So it's really a huge step up from both the XR and the CRF 150, just in terms of build quality and the way it handles and feels. And with that comes confidence, and that's fun. It makes it so you can progress your riding. I think you could do anything that you want on this bike without it sort of limiting what you can do. It just costs quite a lot of money when it's a 150, but that really is about it. Apart from that, it's an awesome bike. It's got 18-inch rear wheel, 21-inch front wheel. It's a proper off-road motorbike, just missing the power, front disc brakes, back disc brakes. It's got a lot more power than the CRF 150 and XR 150. A lot more power. The WR 150. So we're now at 89 mil, which is about in the 4,000.
4 grand.
I think it's 4.5 or something. Anyway, it's about another $500–600 more than the CRF 150. So each level of bike is $500–600 more.
What's the gain?
You got 16 horsepower, and you can feel it. It's a lot more powerful than both the XR and CRF. You got the 134 kg, so it's actually in the middle of the CRF and the XR in terms of weight, but you don't feel it. It feels the lightest. 888mm seat height. So it's the tallest out of the three. You got 6 gears. I just had to go on the road, and it's awesome on the road. It makes a big difference. The whole bike is just pleasurable on the road. Liquid cooled. So I don't know what that means really in a 150 bike. I don't think it means that much. But so the CRF 150 is 73 mil. So it's about $3,800. So it's about an extra $500 or $600 more than the XR 150.
You did say that all of the prices you mentioned earlier is before paper.
Before papers.
Yeah.
The XR 150 doesn't even have a known horsepower, but the CRF 150 is 12 horsepower, 122 kg, so it's lighter than the XR 150. 7.2 litre gas tank, so the gas tank's a lot smaller. 869mm seat height, so it's taller than the XR. 5 gears, and also air-cooled system, same as the XR. Yeah. But basically, it's like an XR 150, but just better quality. It's less wobbly.
It's an XR 150 with fuel injection and better suspension. That's it.
That's a good point. The fuel injection. So if you drop the bike, you just pick it up, turn it on. You also don't have things like it cutting out all the time, that sort of thing. So it's a much better bike. And if I was buying one for myself and I had the choice for an extra $500 or $600, I'd absolutely go for the CRF 150 because it's just like it's a much better bike.
Come on.
So then you move up to WR 150. Basically, it feels like a proper bike, but nowhere near the power of let's say a KTM EXC 350 or something like that. But you can, really get your riding going on this bike. I think actually there's nothing this bike couldn't do. nice machine. Would I buy one at the asking price of $3,800? Probably not. I would still go up to, you know, let's say a proper Japanese DRZ, KTM, European. I wouldn't go with this, but I think it's too much money for a 150. But if you really do want a nice bike that's legal to drive here, then it might be all you got, and it is a big step up from the CRF 150, XR 150. It really is a huge step up. And it's very hard to describe why that is. I couldn't tell you why this is so much easier to drive, but you could learn. It puts your driving to the limits on this bike, and the bike is not holding you back, let's say. But on the other two, the bike is definitely getting in your way in terms of improving your skill set, which is a bit of a shame. I think you would have to be a very good driver before you really outgrew this bike. There's an awful lot you could learn on it. So like I say, I would put myself as a rider who was just beginning to start outgrowing that bike, where I'm pretty comfortable on your open rides. Within Vietnam, he's one of the faster riders, but if I want to up my game to start learning enduro and proper technique, then I think the power of that bike starts to hold back your learning experience. But you can do, you know, last many years on it before you start to outgrow it, I think. So hopping onto the CRF 150, he's just straight away can feel sort of, the best way I can describe it is like a boat. Every time you go down a level of quality, the bike just gets more boat-like. So you know, you can even apply that down to $300 Honda winds and things. You end up driving this thing that's just wobbling around. And that's fine, and you don't know it until you go up to a proper or a better motorbike. So you go from a $300 bike to an XR 150, the XR 150 is going to feel like gold. You go from an XR 150 to this, and this is going to feel like gold. You go from this to the WR is going to feel like gold. You go from the WR to my $11,000 KTM XCFW, and they both feel really good. WR is really good, but it's just missing the power. So I think that's the best way I can describe. You're kind of buying a boat. And so yeah, you can do everything, but it's not helping you. It's actually holding you back. But you know, it's a good bike, and until I'd driven the WR 150, I thought this was the best 150 there was to buy. But even doing stuff like that kind of scares me a little bit on this bike.
The XR is made in China, and I believe the CRF and the Yamaha WR are made in Indonesia, and you can't get parts for them, and there is absolutely no way in hell I would buy a liquid-cooled motorbike where I don't know where I can get parts for. So the maintenance is going to be an absolute nightmare. The XR 150 would be the same story, but at Tigit and just in general in Vietnam, it's become such a popular bike that we have all of the parts. We've gone through that rabbit hole and sourced everything, figured out what parts fit from other bikes and sort of how to make it work. So you can maintain an XR in this country now, but you can't do that with CRF and WR. And it's exactly why at Tigit, despite the CRF 150 being a much better bike in my opinion, we haven't bothered to upgrade the XR to the CRF 150s because we can't get the parts for them. Even if you break a piece of plastic, what do you do? It's a huge problem, huge problem.
So I wouldn't buy either the CRF or the WR until someone finds a decent source for parts, and you got to really consider this before you buy these bikes.
Yep.
So you start out on an XR 150 like everyone does in this country. It's a great platform to learn on, and as you outgrow the bike, you got no choice in my opinion but to start looking for illegal bigger bikes like your DRZ 400s and this sort of stuff. I personally don't think it's worth spending, what is it, 89 million before papers on a bike where if you break one single piece, you got a serious problem. Let alone a full liquid cooled engine. No matter how good the bike is, it's not worth that. You're not going to counter me? I'm an idiot.
I think in 1 or 2 more years, and if the WR starts to sell better, I mean, maybe people is going to start stocking a spare part for the bike.
You need a company, a tour company, a rental company to come along and pick them up en masse to figure it all out for you, which is what we did with the XR.
Yeah.
But unless a tour company, rental company comes along and does that, there's going to be no supply of parts. And when you go to a dealership to buy one of these bikes, they'll tell you, yeah, we can fix it, we can service it. But they can't, they really can't.
But the WR155, this engine is straight out the same on a Yamaha R15. And like the XR150 and the CRF150 share many parts with other Honda bikes as well. So I reckon the WR155 is going to share parts with the other Yamaha bike, like the Exciter.
Yeah, but your job is to sit at a computer and figure this stuff out. If you're a normal person at home, you don't want to sit there and figure this stuff out and buy parts that potentially don't fit. You're going off probably a mechanic's advice. Oh yeah, that other bike's part will fit on your bike, go buy it, and then you find it doesn't fit.
So what's the verdict? Don't break anything on the WR if you buy it?
Turn it into a supermoto motard and drive it down to Highlands Coffee. It is a really nice bike, but it's not worth the trade-off. You should be, okay, let's put it this way. If you buy an illegal DRZ, it's going to cost you $3,500 to $4,000 and the police might take it. But you can buy parts for it overseas and ship them over.
You can fix it.
It's going to cost you, but you can do it. You buy a WR 150 and you break, I've just broken the number plate on this bike, what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, make do with whatever you can find in this country.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we're even chain and sprockets. How are you going to figure out what the replacement sprocket set is on this bike?
You make your own chain and sprockets.
There's no manual. Well, I haven't checked if there's a manual. It's probably not a manual. No service manual. You're going to have to go down to a mechanic and say, hey dude, can you figure out what fits on this bike? And that's it.
But the part for the engine, I think maybe can use it with an Exciter.
I know, right?
155.
The key word you just said to me is maybe. And I get sick and tired of hearing this. Just watch that YouTube video. You can fix this thing within 5 minutes with this other bike stuff. You go and do it and it kind of doesn't fit. Whenever anyone uses the word maybe, it's game over. It's either a yes or a no. No maybes in this world anymore. So, nah. Maybe. Great bike though. Great bike. Is a WR150 worth the extra $600 over this? I would have to say yes. You're just getting a hugely better bike. With a WR150, you're getting 6 gears for the road bit. And if you start to, actually really get into off-roading, you're getting the full, bike setup, not boat-like. The suspension works. You're not going to bottle it out. So the bike's going to last you longer. Who's selling it?
Jung Motors.
Motors.
He's the one selling XR and CRF 150 as well. Probably you bought the CRF 150 from there.
Yeah. So yeah, we stopped it. 4 CRF 150s for this exact part problem that I'm talking about. And we get messages from people, we do. I broke a piece of plastic on my bike, can you tell me how I get a replacement one?
Yeah, you went for that.
Or My chain and sprocket will last 6,000 kilometers. So within 6,000k of owning your new bike, you're now on a rabbit hole of a hunt to find a replacement set.
That's like 100,000 trips to Highland.
Yeah, and now you're looking at, so I don't know what fits, so I'm going to go buy a wheel and a hub, $400 from a bike that I do know fits. And you, before you know it, you're having to modify your bike just to be able to maintain it.
Is there any solution to that?
No. Not if they're going to make them in countries and offer no after, like this bike is targeted, I believe, at India and stuff. So unless there's a proper distributor here, which there isn't and there never will be, then that problem's not going to get solved.
But this problem is not with the WR155 only.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of import bikes in this country, and they kind of survive.
Well, no, you've got bikes. I don't know what makes it into a bike, but what you need to be able to do is go onto Partzilla or any of these other US-based part websites where they have all of the Japanese bikes, the proper bikes, sold on a mass scale around the world. And you just click a couple of buttons, and before you know it, you have all of the part numbers for all of the entire bike. You could literally order an entire bike in small pieces on these sites. So the very first thing I do when I'm looking for a new motorbike is to check that you can get parts on websites like Partzilla. Otherwise, you're basically flying blind.
That's a different mindset to the most amazing.
Well, I think people they're not aware of it.
No, they're not expecting the bike to break.
They do. Especially if you're doing what we're doing
The
today.
Vietnamese mindset is you buy a Honda Cup and you expect it to last for like 20 years. Even the brake pads like this one.
Well, you're buying an off-road bike. If you're buying a WR150, you're saying, hey, I'm a pretty serious rider, I'm going for it. So you're going to break parts, you are. And you know how easy it is to break radiators on off-roading and stuff.
So,
very easy.
The WR155 is for serious rider, but the serious rider wouldn't want to buy the WR155 because you expect to break it and fixing it.
Exactly.
And it cannot be fixed here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Agree? I mean, you can counter me.
I think valid point, but different mindset. What we do is not what most people do. I still think this bike will sell here to people who will convert it into a supermotor and do stunt, or reviewing it in terms of do sport trail riders perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you're saying it's a project bike. You buy it new with the mindset that you're going to modify it.
Yeah, I think the supermotor community is bigger than the do sport and trail riding community.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a great bike, and it's better than the CRF 250 on the road. I was so happy with it just now. Really nice.
If I wanted more power, jumping from the CRF 150 or the XL 150, I would rather get the KLX 250.
Yeah.
You can get part for it. It's cheaper than the CRF 250.
That's true.
So trail riding, do sport rider, the KLX 250 is still the best bike.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. KLX 250 is the most underrated sort of off-road dual sport bike in this country.
Yeah.
Because it's so cheap, about $6,000 new. You can probably buy them about $3,000 with papers second hand, and you can buy parts for them.
No, actually they are like $5,000 second hand.
Okay, just buy one new then, $6,000. No way, $5,000. What's up with that? But they're cheap, and you can get parts. Well, on another point though, let's just take CC. Just say CC is a power, right? These bikes, XR, CRF, WR, they're all 150cc. But if you're going to say the XR is a 150, I would say the CRF is a 180, and I would say the WR is probably about 220.
You honestly think the CRF 150 has more power than the XR 150?
Yeah, a little bit. But there's not much difference in the power between the WR150 and the CRF 250. There really isn't. I would actually, if I was doing off-roading, I would take the WR150 over the CRF 250 any day. It's a much better bike. Much better. You got power is not a massive factor, but the whole bike setup and the suspension is just far superior to the CRF 250.
If you're not the one that have to maintain it, yeah.
Yeah, if it was a rental bike, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Take it, destroy it,
and it's your own bike now.
Yeah.
So So buy the WR 155 and rent a CRF 150 from Tigit if you want to go trail riding.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't break our CRF 150s though, because we can't get parts for them. You take the XR 150 and break it, that's fine, I don't care.